GM, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the revival of Mindfolk's Goodwood Show. I am your host. Today I'm CP. Some of you know me as one half of CT20, and I'm joined by my co-host, the amazing Bad Religion, stalwart member of the Mindfolk community. So hello, everybody.
Hello.
And I have to say, Bad Religion, you did quite an amazing job at getting our first guest, which obviously everybody knows because they've seen the title by this point, but Kais of OK Bears, the co-founder of OK Bears. And I have to say, having just had our conversation with him, wow, what a guest. What a guest. An amazing guy. I mean, what did you think?
Yeah, it was great. And then everything just was so smooth, right? We didn't even have to do the questions that we had in the list because he would actually automatically speak about all of that. So it was very good. And then, yeah, it's someone that I follow and I'm part of the OK Bears community. I follow him. I actually met him in person in 2023 in Amsterdam on the Breakpoint conference. So it was amazing to be able to be here on this side, interviewing him or having him on this chat.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my first time meeting him, and I have to say, it was a very pleasurable experience. So, without further ado, please enjoy our interview with Kais of OK Bears. GM, and welcome to the brand new show of the Goodwood Show, which is back. It is back, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. This is our new chapter for Mindfolk. Working on a lot at the moment, and it's a big pleasure to have you guys here with us. Today I am CP. You might know me as CT20. And I'm joined by Bad Religion, a very stalwart member of the Mindfolk community, who has done amazing things to bring it back into its revival. And we are very pleased to announce that our first guest for our pilot show is none other than Kais from the OK Bears project, which is absolutely fantastic. We're very pleased to have you here, Kais.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be the first. Hopefully the first of many.
The first of the revival, at least. So for those who may not know, I imagine most of our listeners will, but for those who don't, who is Kais and who are the OK Bears?
Okay, so Kais is just the founder of OK Bears. Well, co-founder, but a year ago I broke up with the rest of the team, and now I'm the sole person, steering the ship. OK Bears are Solana OGs. They have, I think we still have the record for the first mint day in terms of volume. We've been around since early 2022. We're still here today.
And very much so, it seems. It appears to me from what I'm seeing that you've got still a very vibrant community, still very engaged. But let's take it back just a step. You mentioned that you took yourself away from OK Bears for a second and departed from the team. What happened there exactly?
I think when we first started the project, there was this meta at the start where if you want to impress potential holders, if you want to create hype, you have to have this team page on your website, and it should have all these people, and they've done all those cool things in cool different places. But all those places, the super impressive ones, are very much Web 2. So straight after Mint, we had hired a CEO that's previously worked at Sony, that's had a couple of company exits, that knows how to run media at a large scale. My co-founders, both of them also had, Web 2 knowledge, even me as well. And over the course of the first year and a half, I started realizing that, to be honest, none of your experience from the real world actually applies to Web3. And the biggest one is understanding community and understanding the role of community. And so, you know, if you're familiar with OK Bears, we had a meteoric rise, you know, went from 1.5 Sol to, I don't know, 220, 230 Sol in the matter of like 4 weeks. You know, everybody was buying OK Bears. We were all over the timeline, you know, massive things were happening for us. But I think ultimately we kind of failed to capture that community momentum. And so what ended up happening is actually around breakpoint, when we met. I remember sitting in my hotel room the night before the meetup, and I sent a message to the group chat of, you know, the 3 other people who were leading project with me, and I'm like, I just feel so upset that I have to meet our holders tomorrow and our floor price is like 80. And it's just like, it's not okay. And nobody texted back. And for like an hour later, one of them called and he's like, hey, how you feeling? So we hopped on a call and there was this like complete detachment between my frame of mind and their frame of mind. And I was the only one that was like doxed. I was the one attending all the events. I was the one doing the spaces, the one active on Twitter. And so it got to a place where I had formed a lot of friendships and bonds with the community. I mean, specifically, you know, we had a couple of DAOs, one of them in the UK, one of them in the US, and I would spend time in those private chats and DMs, and I would just like hang out because ultimately that's what Web3 is about. And then it got to a stage where it was clear that the community can feel that the team wasn't doing this really for them. They didn't like that. We didn't really make space for the community to be part of the project. And ultimately, that is what kind of was the breaking point. Because I got to a stage where I'm like, okay, I'm no longer okay with kind of being stuck between team and community. And to be honest, I'm much more comfortable being on the community side. And I think it's time for you guys to walk away. And so that happened a year and a half ago.
Okay, wow, that's a big step, and I can appreciate. I mean, it's difficult, I think, sometimes to disconnect Web3 from Web2. We're seeing so much trying to force its way into Web3, so that I can understand where your team were coming from to some extent. What happened in the interim when you say you took yourself away? Did you take the project with you, or did you separate yourself from the project?
No. So okay. I basically made the offer for the other 3 to walk away. And ultimately, when you do that, given that when we first minted OK Bears, we were registered as a company, everyone held a certain portion of shares. The only way you actually get people to walk away is you pay them off. Like, that's just how it is. And so we ended up with 37% of treasury, 40% of treasury left. And when that happened, I then had to go face the community and tell them that I've just done this. And in my head, I'm like, that's it, I'm dead meat. Like, they're just everyone's gonna be up in flames. But it was the complete opposite. So suddenly the community just kind of rallied. They're like, okay, cool, you know, like, we've always interacted with you. Let's give this a go. Let's see what, you know, what we can do here. And my focus automatically at the start was, okay, I need to mend the broken relationships. And so we started doing things that we never did before. So number one, we started building in public entirely. So I think for 34 weeks straight, every Friday or Monday, we go live on X for an hour. Drims and I, we give updates, we answer questions. And we took the community on the journey with us. You know, we had some really tough times towards the end of the year from a treasury perspective when everything was dumping. You know, we're in a bit of a, you know, pickle at the moment, as are many legacy NFT projects that, you know, had some mint funds, lost a lot of it to FTX, continued operating, had team breakup. So just like, you know, and along the way built a lot of cool stuff and given the community a lot of cool things. So yeah, I think where I am today, ultimately, I sometimes think maybe I shouldn't have done this. We would have had more runway. But equally, if I didn't have if I didn't do this, we would still be floundering without a vision. And that was also a massive problem at the start. Like, we would meet up as a team every month, and the question would be, okay, what are we doing? Okay, what is OK Bears, right? And it got to a stage where I'm like, clearly there's too many cooks. And if we're 2 years in and we still can't answer this existential question, something must be done. And so I was able to, win a lot of the community back. I was able to win a lot of crypto Twitter back. I mean, I was a divisive figure when we first minted. There was a lot of drama around OK Bears. So by virtue of me continuing to be here and then, taking the social impact route, things are a lot better for us today than they were in any period 2 months past mint.
That's fascinating. I want to come back to this element of community. And it's a very good point you make, actually, that if we think about the highs of 21, 22, when, NFT craze was just absolutely through the ceiling, we thought this was definitely where it's going. And then, of course, everything just came down on top of us. So for you to say that today, when sort of, I guess, in most people's minds, NFTs, I mean, if they even knew what they were in the first place, they now think that they're dead. So for you to say that you're in a better place now, that's really, really interesting. And it seems to me like you keep, you sort of focus in on this aspect of community. And that is certainly a thing that most people in Web3 have sort of tacked onto, is this community spirit. And a lot of people have come into it because they want to be a part of something. It's almost like their church. What do you see in community? Why do you think the community has become almost the driving force of Web3?
I mean, we have this joke where we say, I'm not a bag holder, I'm a community member. I think that I need to preface something by saying, like, we're better off today in every way other than financially. And I think this is everybody across the board in NFTs. And it's important to understand that founders and teams are the same way, because we have spent a lot of that, initial mint money, royalties completely died down, and we had to watch, the NFTs continue to topple down. I think a couple years ago as well, when Sol hit $8, I'm like, you know what? Sol is finished. So I'm just going to be curating my own collection of OK Bears, because we're gonna outlive Solana. Because just the outlook was so bleak, right? And I had some Sol in my wallet, and it became worth nothing. And I'm like, you know what? I might as well just start collecting bears. And I have a thing for like a specific trait with bears. It's the smile. And so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna collect one fur having that smile across the entire fur collection. It's like 19 bears. And I don't want to say this out loud, but I think I spent like 2,400 Sol trying to build that collection. And if I'm not even gonna think what that what that is in today's money. So I know the pain just as much as everyone else, and I'm staring at these things in my wallet, and I'm like, I will never get that Sol back. But I think why we all tacked onto community, man, I think it's the reason why the NFT bubble took off to start with. I keep saying NFTs existed at a very unique point in time, and it coincided with COVID. Okay, and so most of the tech savvy, nerdy people were just kind of stuck behind their computers at home, and they just needed to find more people stuck at home. And for some of us that knew a little bit about crypto, we ended up stumbling onto NFTs that way, right? So we're all kind of stuck indoors looking for company and ways to make money. And so even though the ways to make money have disappeared in NFTs at the moment, the first reason very much still holds. And after 3-4 years of being in a chat room with people, you kind of know about a lot more than, yes, half the people aren't doxxed, but you become friends, their problems, you check in with them on a day-to-day basis. And that's real. And the more time that passes and the more you're able to keep this bunch of people together, it becomes extremely hard to like for that bond to break. And I'll be honest, man, like I've come very close in the last year and a half. Like it's been really tough to be like, just what's the point? Right. And even my wife, I think 4 or 5 months ago, she's like, look, you really tried, like, and the community knows you tried, and you might as well just kind of call time. And I'm like, I'm not like, there are people in there, there's like 150 200 people that believe in this thing more than you do, right? And that is enough for you to keep going. I'm like, we will either keep going until we either like, dig ourselves out of this hole again or go to zero, but there's no stopping either way. Like it's all or nothing. So yeah.
How do you then, I mean, given that community, again, coming back to this point that it is probably the most important thing about OK Bears, how do you manage community? If you've come into this thinking this is everybody coming together to find their central ground, but there's a lot of members in OK Bears, and presumably, let's say at least half of them want to have some sort of interaction with you, whether that be occasionally or in fact more regularly than that. How do you balance everything when you're trying to run this company, but you're also, talking to members all of the time?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take you back to my childhood. So I grew up with MIRC and then MSN Messenger and then early day Facebook, where you had communities, you had discussion boards, and there were like topics. And I find this way of connecting with people a lot more comforting than talking with people in real life. I think many introverts feel the same way. So it's quite natural. Like as a kid, I've grown up with this like appendix life online, and like a bunch of friends. I'll tell you a quick story. So I think I was 18 at the time when Facebook was just starting to pop off, and I was like, I always, I don't know, I'm a bit contrarian. Anything that is trending, I don't want to do it. And so my friends were like,
same. I'm exactly the same.
For no like rational reason. Yeah. I'm just like, everybody's doing it, so I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think a friend of mine, Dada, who's now actually on the OK Bears team, we went to uni together. He was like, look, you're an Arsenal fan, and like you only know 3 other Arsenal fans around. Did you know you can find Arsenal fans on Facebook? And I'm like, okay, all right, cool. Let's check that out. And so I found this Arsenal Facebook group, and I think I joined when there was like 10 or 12,000 members, and then it grew to around 40,000 members. I became one of like the 10 admins. But more importantly, I made friends for life in that thing. Like when I was 20 years old, my real friends would call and be like, hey man, do you want to go somewhere? I'm like, nah, I'm just hanging out on Facebook. And they're like, you're a weirdo. But to the point where like I've not met more than half of these people. But when my wife and I got married, they bought us like a commemorative stone at the Emirates Stadium. And genuinely, it is probably the most special gift that I've received from total randomers on the internet.
That's beautiful.
And so like this whole thing is a natural extension for me. And like I've matured in the space. I remember the early days of FUD, and people would, storm into Discord and they're like, F this, and like this is a rug and we hate you and you don't know what you're doing. And I used to get defensive. But now when something like this happens, I'm like, this person is here because they care, because they're emotionally invested and they want some comfort. And so I kind of like I've just taken a completely different approach where I would just like absorb it, and I'm like, all right, let's talk about it. Let's try to figure things out. But more importantly as well, I think, and that's something I couldn't do early days. I couldn't be completely open with people, because the people I was leading the company with wanted to be really corporate, which I understand. Because the hopes and dreams for NFTs were that they're going to become this like, we heard this many times, the next Disney, the next this, the next that. So like we went corporate way too early, when really I've discovered that if you just go to the community and like, hey man, remember this contract we were trying to make with I don't know, Ralph Lauren? It fell through. And instead of like being afraid that they're going to FUD you, they will kind of put a arm around you, like, oh man, this sucks, but you know, at least you're trying. You know, what else can you do? And the first approach of hide it, don't say anything, partly because you don't want to play into the speculation game, but partly because you're scared of the FUD, really doesn't go anywhere. And I think our first year and a half was like leading with a lot of fear. And I also like discovered, for example, like with us, because you know, one cool thing about OK Bears is like the corporate partnerships that, you know, we aim to do. You know, we've got the one big successful one with Zara, and early this year we had a contract signed with a company called Only and Sons. If you're in Europe, you might be familiar with them. They're probably 2 tiers below Zara and H&M. And they've got shops, I think, in around 15 or 16 European countries. Everything was signed, sealed. The production of the clothes were already being made. Plans for like window displays were being done. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna let the community know that this thing's gonna happen. So I tweeted about it. Everyone got super hyped. And 10 days later, I get a call, and our rep was like, the deal's off. I'm like, what do you mean the deal's off? Like the clothes are being produced. Like, this is as good as in the bag as it was ever going to be. Like, what happened? And, you know, I'm not going to dive into like what happened there. But when I went back to the community, there was no FUD this time. There was understanding. You know, shit happens. And so I found out that if you're able, so like at the moment we're in a pitch process with H&M. And like 2 years ago, you would never say this because it's like, people are going to ape into NFTs. People don't give a shit now. But more importantly, there's a way to introduce it. You can be like, you know, we're going to tease a little logo here or whatever. Or you could just be mature and address the community like they're your team members and say, you know, this week we got the opportunity to pitch for H&M. Odds are nothing is ever going to happen. If something were to happen, it's probably going to take 2 years. I'm going to keep you guys posted. But I would like you to know that there's something happening. And now like on those live shows, we now also share our pitch decks and you know, we give weekly updates. And so yeah, I think internet community has been always like natural to me, but I have massive regrets on not following my intuition for the first couple of years. But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I want to just add, because it's a bit of the same journey that Mindfolk with the old founders had. It was exactly the same thing. Like, you think you can run it as a Web2 company, right? And at some point, things are they are not Web2, right? It's completely different because of the community, and the community is kind of it's kind of your team, right? In a sense that they are almost investors, right? And at some point, the more you try to hide stuff, the more the FUD happens.
100%.
Yeah. So I think that is the key point, right? It's the more you are honest with everyone, the more they will support you and they will understand. And the ones that don't like that, they can move on, right? Because that is not the project for you. And I think there was this idea that projects would be could have runway forever, right? With royalties, and this 2021-22 boom would make the projects live I don't know forever, right? We're gonna have money forever to do everything. And then I think a lot of bad decisions financially were made, right? In general, in all projects, right? And I'm sure
but also FTX, it's huge, bro. Like when we minted, Sol was at $100, right? I think we raised, genuinely, I forget. Let's just say around 6-7 million. By the time because remember at the time it was taboo for you to move money from the royalty wallet. Remember, like if a team moved the money, you would get
it's dodgy. It's dodgy.
Exactly. So what did we do? We set up a validator. We're like, you know what? We're not touching the money. You know, we're going to take $1 million. We're going to operate with it. You saw it. Everything else, just stick it in there, right? And then FTX happened. Half the stuff was on a Coinbase wallet. Things were locked down. By the time we were able to like be completely out or in stables, you were looking at like $2.2 million. Because it disappeared, like them, and some of it was still stuck in Coinbase, and by the time they returned it, you know, 2.5 years later, it was like a quarter of what it was meant to be. And people forget that part, like, because you know, with us, we had a massive mint, you know, you got like Trip and Ape and whatever, but like once you're the kind of perception is like, you know, these guys made 10 million. No, we didn't. And like by the time it actually turned into real money, you know, you look at that and then you look at, okay, there's around $300,000-400,000 worth of like gold-backed NFTs that we're gonna gift it to the community. There's like the 3 platform which cost, you know, a few $100,000 to build. There's operating over 3.5 years. There's a bunch of events. There's you know,
people to be paid.
There is people to be paid, and like I don't know if I think I've said this before, but like not on a podcast, but like for part of the year, some people on the team weren't getting paid at all. And like I wish I can say I was one of them, but like this is like I cannot go work somewhere else because I need to make this work. But some of our team members had to go pick up, you know, like a part-time job or this and that, and then, you know, hop back on when times got better. And like the teams at the moment are genuinely hustling. Like I think the easy way to go would be to be like a year ago or 6, 7, 8 months ago. You know what? This is not working out. You know, NFTs are a bubble. See you guys later. And we saw tons of founders, you know, go down that route. And I think for the majority, crypto Twitter has just been like, they just get over it. But if you're still here trying to build, they, you know, you have to take the tantrums and the anger. But, you know.
So coming back to your community then, and your sort of transparency and openness about, you know, where OKBears is going at any one point. How do you deal with anybody that, you know, presumably you come up with most of your ideas sort of before you come to the community? I might be wrong there, but let's say you put something out and it just, you know, either you've got a few people who are completely against it, or in fact, it just doesn't go down well at all. Has that happened, and how do you deal with that?
I mean, very, very, very early days. Our first announcement was that we were gonna gift people wristbands. That was 1 point out of like 10. And then we got fudded to the ground for that. People, yeah, I still got my wristband.
I remember
people, yeah, they still mention it as a meme now. I'll say recently, like in the past year, we've not had any FUD of this nature because we don't put out announcements anymore. It's a continuous conversation. So the community knows. So for example, you saw the latest strategies trend with like the tokens that came out, right?
I have to rely on Bad Religion for that one.
Yeah. So apparently, I think Tensor is creating like a strategy where they create a coin related to each project, the big ones, and they use the funds that were spent that come from buying the coin to buy the actual NFT project. I think is that, guys, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
so it's not really Tensor. It's this company called Bands, and they're copying a model that is currently working quite nicely on Ethereum. But long story short, so there's this like new token thing, and I'm not sure about how other communities are doing at the moment. But I just posted in Discord. I'm like, hey, how many of you guys would be open to us doing it? How many don't want us to do it? And I also posted it on X, and you kind of then get a gauge for what people want and don't want, and then from there, so it's not it's not really a DAO model, but it is taking the community into consideration. And so if I was to be like, all right, no, I need to take this decision, then I would explain it. I'll be like, I know most of you don't want it, so I will acknowledge that you know, I might be going a different route. This is my reasons for it, and we'll see whether it works out or not. And you know, if I don't think in the past year, I don't think we've had to go down that route. It's always been, okay, keep discussing with the community, see if you can convince them, they can convince you, and then kind of, you know, just make sure that they feel valued. However, a year and a half ago, the thing that triggered like the initial breakup with the rest of the team members is we had a mint on Ethereum. So we had OK Dogs on ETH. It's a collection that we'd wanted to drop since forever. And I think there was a moment where Magic Eden was going to become the preferred ETH marketplace for Bored Apes and Azuki and Pudgy Penguins. And so we're like, okay, this is a good moment to mint. So we positioned ourselves as the first mint on Magic Eden's ETH launchpad, at a time where the community wasn't really very comfortable with us minting a second collection. And I was a little bit torn, because I'm like, maybe the problem is the blockchain. Like, maybe we'll get more appreciation if we branch out onto Ethereum. And then literally, I think on the day we minted, ETH had a massive crash, and I think that was like the end of the end for NFTs. But what I noticed internally is that there was this like preference to just sit there and do nothing until there was a better time. And that's where I was like, no, I can't do this. Like, in my head, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable with the way like the mint worked out. We're currently under mint, and I can't see urgency from my rest of the team members. Like, for me, it was like the end of the world, and to them it was just like another day in business. And we just knuckle down. Better days are gonna come, and then we'll do things then. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. Like, it's just I can't do this anymore. And I had to represent the team and talk to the community. I'm like, I can't be a mouthpiece, because I don't believe in half the shit that we're planning to say. So I don't want to. And that's kind of like made the spiral. But like, also, like, all this to say, the people that left are still my friends. We check in on a weekly basis. Whenever we have a charity mint for OK Bears, they would mint some. But I just think, moving forward, I think a solid unified vision is required for a company. I think like trying to run something as a democracy doesn't work. And so back to the community, that's where making sure they know they're heard, even if you take a decision that they do not want, I think prevents FUD.
Okay. So this, you've clearly exploring, there's still this, I guess, corporate edge to OK Bears. And it's been interesting hearing you speak about sort of partnering hopefully with H&M in the future, and there have been other things in the pipeline and in the past. And one thing that did interest me when I was reading up was this partnership with IMG, actually. So what do you use IMG for, and how did that partnership come about?
So it's I think 3 weeks after mint, we got like a cold email from the representative saying, hey, we'd like to meet up. So I flew to New York. It was the first Solana keynote, and I think only 3 weeks after mint, they asked us to speak on behalf of Sol NFT. So we're like the only Sol collection. And in hindsight, I probably should have said no, because we didn't make many friends by being, the new kids on the block and all the ETH money flowing into OK Bears. And now this founder that nobody knows is on stage with like Raj and Anatoly and and also SBF. And so during that time, I also met up with IMG, and they said that they're interested in us being their entry into Web3. And the justification from them was, we love what Bored Ape Yacht Club is doing, but it is very hard to sell them within the portfolio that they have, because they do a lot of PG, a lot of cartoons, a lot of gaming, a lot of clothing. And so they were waiting for literally the next Bored Ape Yacht Club. And so when we popped up, they just kind of made us an offer. They're like, we'll represent you. What we'll do is we will pitch you to a bunch of our clients, and we'll represent you with other brands, and we'll go and try to get you some collab deals. Now, being contracted to literally the #1 licensing company in the world, and being their absolute tiniest client, like if you go to the IMG website, you scroll around, you would know everything on there except OK Bears. Like OK Bears would pass by, you're like, what the hell is this? Right? And so we're like objectively tiny. And in the first year, like they were able to get us conversations with Razer, with Ralph Lauren, with Zara, with H&M. But the moment NFTs started trending down, and the moment we started trending down, we became a very tough sell, because what are you going to collab with, right? And then, you know, then we had the lawsuits, and we had FTX. And since then, we've kind of been on the shelf with IMG. Like, their conversation with us is, we try, but you're a very hard sell at the moment. NFTs, nobody cares about them anymore. At the start, everybody wanted a piece of this like industry that was making money out of thin air. No longer the case. And so just imagine you have a rep, and he's going to sit in front of you, and he's like, hey, this is Peppa Pig and PJ Masks and Fortnite and OK Bears and this. Who in their right minds are like, yeah, let's collab with this name instead of all the others? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Which really kind of, you have to come to grips with reality. And that's what happened for us at the start of the year. So I kind of had to step back, and I'm like, we're not unique enough. So what are we going to do so that we can be unique enough in Web3, but also in the real world? Like, what is our unique selling point? What is the thing that we're doing that no other Web3 or NFT project is doing? What are we doing that no other company in the real world is doing? Because unless we answer that question, we're just a has-been NFT collection. And if you're an IP play, your IP needs to be out there. And if you don't find a way to be out there, then for me, I don't think there's no way that you can sustain or keep going.
I think there's also a lack of City, the lack of imagination from the NFT projects, right? Everyone copies the metas of everyone else, right? NFT loans work. Everyone is doing NFT loans or whatever. Merchandise never work, but sweep the floor is the next thing. Okay, the base case of my NFT project is just sweep the floor. How can you survive like that, right? You don't have anything different, and then the projects that actually add something different, they didn't survive because actually everyone wanted just whatever was trendy, right? I don't know if you felt that and the pressure to follow whatever everyone was doing.
I mean, 100%, man. Like, we were never okay with like floor sweeps or, you know, market makers, or because it's like it's you're faking
Volume.
You're faking metrics. Yes, you're faking volume. And in the first year and a half to 2 years, really, like, volume was never a problem for OK Bears. And so I think there is lack of imagination. I dive a little bit deeper. I mean, I've got a Klano in the back and a Beans, and I don't have any OK Bear anywhere. But if you look at the moment at the top 5, 6, 7 IP plays in Web3, you know, starting with Pudgy Penguins, Azuki, Klanos, Chimpers, I'm forgetting a bunch, Doodles. It is all a very similar playbook. Okay, and I might upset some people, but it is the playbook that Pudgy knocked out of the park, right? If anything, they, like, Pudgy Penguins are the epitome of what it would look like for an NFT project to drop a token and for the token to actually make any sense. Like, the global demand, you know, the hustle to get the penguin everywhere, to make it the face of crypto, but the plush toys, the mobile games, the trending reels on TikTok and Instagram, it's kind of copy and paste. I think with Klanos, they're doing a show, but I think Lil Pudgies have a show on YouTube. I think Azuki are also doing an anime. So that tier has become really crowded. So everybody is trying to be the next new cartoon. I'll just put that bluntly. Maybe Pudgy Penguins put it to the side a little bit because they want to be the face of crypto and the mascot, and I think that's like great. But all the other IP players are trying to be the next cartoon, the next Dora, the next Bluey, the next Pokemon. And I don't know how many more of the next we need in Web3, right? And I think the biggest indicator of the fact that Web3 appreciates the first versus the ones that follow is the token and price action of Pudgy Penguins compared to the likes of Doodles and Klanos. I mean, Doodles and Klanos are killing it. Like genuinely, it's a masterclass. But there's always the question of why isn't the floor the same as Pudgy's? Because Pudgy's did it first. And I feel like that's all that matters in Web3, right?
Yeah.
So for us, I had to step back and think, look, if I'm going to try to play in this playground, we're going to fail. Number one, we don't have industry leading, people on the team that have worked at Pixar and that have worked at gaming companies. We don't have that makeup. Secondly, we're late. We tried to do the trending reel stuff on TikTok and Instagram with like the animated bears, and dude, like I think that is the lowest point that the team was in because everybody hated it. Like as a consumer, I absolutely hate trending anything, right?
Yeah.
And so we were there looking at all these, it's like the same joke, and then every animated brand repeats the same joke with their characters, not just Web3, literally like the entire world. And granted, it worked for some, but I just like our heart wasn't in it. And we got a couple of reels that hit like 1 million views. We got a few that hit 100,000 views. But we kind of took in December, we had like a team offsite, and everyone was like, "Can we just stop doing this shit?" And I'm like, "But we need to make the bear famous. How are we going to do it if we don't do that?" And that was around 6 months up until June of soul searching, of working with some like what do we call them, consultants, of like racking our brains to figure out how are we going to take the OK Bear to the world in a way that is unique, so that we're not copying our brothers in Web3, we're not competing with them, and maybe even creating an avenue where we can take them with us. And so that's where we kind of, after all the soul searching and kind of going back into our history and thinking, what is the one thing that we really enjoy doing? Like, what's the one thing we're very proud of? And it is our collab with Lonzo Ball. Very early days, we created a Lonzo Ball NFT. We auctioned it on Magic Eden, raised $18,000, gave him all the money, and then he donated all the money to his high school, and they renovated 2 basketball courts in his like childhood high school. And the art on that basketball court isn't really like that beautiful. You can barely make out that there's an OK Bear, but overall, that just felt so real, right? Like you can touch it. It's like building literally. And so we're like, okay, let's just try to repeat that. Let's find another court and let's do it with a bit more focus. And so the easiest thing for us to do was to look back home in Lebanon. Dada, one of our team members, lives there. I'm originally from there. So we understand costs of production. We understand the political climate. We understand the need. And so in the north of Lebanon, we found this falling apart basketball court that was built maybe around 20 years ago, 25 years ago, for the disabled community in the north of Lebanon. Now, Lebanon is a third world country, and putting it as respectfully as I can, there's trouble with electricity and water and food. And so disability isn't really at the top of like the list, but at the end of the day, there's a big population of disabled people in Lebanon, primarily because of the war. And so we found this basketball court, and we found this community that nobody was kind of like funding. And we went and visited the court, and the whole thing was cracked. The hoops were rusting. The seats were all destroyed. And more importantly, the ramps that allowed people to like use the wheelchair to get onto the court to play wheelchair basketball were also broken. So these guys were getting injured. And so we're like, okay, how much is this going to cost to repair? How can we make it look cool? And so we ended up, repairing the whole thing, creating this massive mural of an OK Bear in a wheelchair, having like a strong pose shooting a basketball. And we even made some merch. I think you can kind of see this one. There's a bear with a wheelchair on it. Like, you never see people with disabilities represented on streetwear. And we shot some social media content for it. We will be releasing a 10-minute documentary next week or the week after about it. And we just felt so fulfilled because people were kind of looking at that bear and seeing hope. They're looking at that bear and seeing like a symbol for good. And around that time, I had a chat with the community. I'm like, look, I might not be able to make you rich, but I'm going to make you proud. And so we doubled down on that. We finished that first court. We released it. We just completed our second double court in Indonesia, in a city called Surakarta. And those double courts are the only free-to-play courts in the city. And they were also in bad shape, so we repaired them. There was public toilets that were really unhygienic, so we rebuilt public toilets there as well. We also built accessibility ramps for the blind and the disabled. And we finished that. In a couple of weeks, we're flying over to South Africa, and we're doing another court near a school in a really poor part of South Africa. A school has 1,400 kids. We're involving them in a small NFT collection that we're making them design. And so I think we kind of found our element. And now when people ask me, like, what is OK Bears? We say OK Bears is a global experiment disguised as a brand, because we might look like a brand, but we're still experimenting. And even in your mission statement, I think honesty is crucial. And our mission is to unite strangers through apparel, art, and technology. And every drop that we create funds the restoration of play spaces where hope and community thrive. So that is our mission. What I would like to do, if we don't run out of runway in time, is to make the OK Bear a symbol for good. And if you see an OK Bear profile picture on Twitter, I don't want you to think, okay, this is like an ETH asshole that is flexing on me with all his money, or like, I just want you to look at that profile picture and say, this person cares about making the world a little bit better. So it really is just about finding a unique angle, not forgetting your character behind, and then trying to take that to the world and to break out. And I'll say, when we did the Lebanon court and we were putting out content on Instagram, like, this is filmed video content as well, quite unique. We don't see it out of Web3 in any frequency. Our videos were getting like 3,000 likes. And so we finished up that whole rollout, and we kind of sat back and we're like, shit, the world doesn't care. And even like some of our holders were like, what are you going to do? I'm like, for once, we're going to double down, and we're going to do it again and again and again until it sticks and gets better.
Until it works, right?
Exactly. Because it is worth doing. And we're
it's not wasted money, right? It's not wasted money. You're actually doing
changing
something.
Lives.
Yeah.
100%. And so we're just at the start of the Indonesia court content, and we already had, a video breakout to 250,000 views, and a bunch of others that have cracked 70 or 80,000 views. And it just shows that once, like, finally I can say I am sure of a vision. I know what we're doing. And now it's like, all right, this is worth going to zero for. And so, like, if in 6 months we run out of runway and we have 6 or 7 courts around the world that are like massive OK Bear murals, that's a good legacy to leave behind. Yeah, and then if people manage to get on board during that time, then I think we will multiply and amplify and grow and scale from there.
But it's not only this, right? You started the partnership with Red, right? That was already something related with doing some good to others. And I remember the motto of OK Bears, where everything is going to be okay, right? So it's kind of all of this is kind of on the sequence, right? Nature kind of heals itself, and at some point, you're just continuing what you started. At it's
exactly. It's focusing on it's just a doubling down on something. And like, in all honesty, for me personally, I'm also maybe like a little bit older than like the other founders, or like the hey buddy, especially like when it comes to IP plays. And He wants to sit. All right, man.
Have a new star of the show. Oh no!
This is where Cats on Crack get
Yeah,
their
that's
sponsor
exactly
on the
Cats on Crack.
the
That's where
corner,
they are.
right
Um,
corner.
So yeah, like I'm a little bit older in age to like your typical Web3 founder. I'm 38. And in all honesty, like, and this is just me, like no slight on others, but yeah, we make a trending cartoon like movie. So what? Like, honestly, like, so what?
I'm
right?
surprised you don't want to drink from a shoe. Come on.
Look, again, like no shame on others. Look, I mean, the Clanos are being attacked. Oh my goodness.
We lost our sponsorship. That's it. We're gone.
Yes. So like, I'm gonna open the door for him because I think he wants to go out.
We can always cut this part anyway, so it's.
I don't know. I quite like it.
It's good. Okay, we leave it. It's fine. It's fine.
See, I'm being fudded by my own cat.
This is it. The Clanos were literally on the floor. What do we say about that?
By Cats on Crack.
I just picked the Clano off the floor.
Oh, well done.
But like, honestly, I think it's just it's like life perspective. And again, I was having a chat to my wife like 5-6 months ago, and she's like, "What happens if this whole thing fails? Like, would you go and chase a job at like a Google or an Apple?" I'm like, I don't care. Like, yes, I might join the design team and design the next iPhone, but like, so what? Like, where is the meaning in any of it? And maybe it's a bit existential for me, but like I'm at a stage in life where I really I want to build something that makes the world a better place. And at the moment, the one place we're failing is making the holders world a better place. But hopefully we'll get there. Like they're at the top of the world list for me.
And is your sorry, City, I just wanted to ask, guys, is your background in design?
Yeah, I'm a designer.
So
I've
you
got a
do the
bachelor's
designs?
in design. Yeah.
Okay.
I do the designs.
Okay.
Dada and I, we tag team, but yes,
Okay.
like my role on the team is designer and art director. That's
okay.
where my expertise is.
I wanted to come back to that point. It sort of, because looking at the website and everything, it's very clear that charitable work is at the heart of what OK is doing, and it does tie in for me, just as Bad Religion was just alluding to, was that it does tie in for me the whole Wagbo thing. We're all going to be okay. The fact that it's called OK Bears, to me, it's saying it doesn't matter what the market's doing. We're here for each other. That's what this project about. So it almost seems to me as if that mission has been there from the very start. I mean, is that how you feel, or do you feel like it's come out organically? What was the inspiration for OK Bears?
Oh, it was literally building a community online for people to shelter during the bear market. We kind of knew that when we were like, by the time we finished the art for OK Bears, the NFT craze was like already a little bit slumping, right? So end of 2021 is where you really wanted to launch. And so when we got to like April of 2022, it was increasingly clear that we were going to enter a bear market. Like nobody knew it was going to be that bad. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't have launched. But the whole aim was to look after people. And I think a proof of that is before we even minted, our whitelist process was very much centered around social activation. I don't know if you remember this, but like the first ever whitelist kind of, because like back at the time the meta was you make people do something and then you give them whitelist. So the first thing we did with a bunch of people in our Discord was we asked them to change their profile pictures on Twitter at the time off of their NFTs and to just use the OK logo. So suddenly you had like 300-400 people that stopped repping a DGod and stopped repping a Bored Ape and they have like a green OK. And so all their community started asking, what the hell is this? And that was like the first step in like going viral, because now you had 200-300 active people on X for like a week tweeting with your logo. Like not even we hadn't even shown a bear at the time. And so that was like the first phase. The second phase, again, it was COVID time. So we asked people to to go outside, go for a walk, or just like open the window and just put their hand up and like do the okay sign and take
Yeah, I
a picture
remember.
of just their hand and say like we're all going to be okay.
There's the banner with that, with all the NFT projects arms.
Yeah,
right?
we ended up doing that
Mindful
as well after the FTX crash. But at the time we had selected 400 people that were going to be awarded whitelist. And all they had to do was just like go do the thing, post it on Discord, we'll verify it, we'll give you whitelist. And we woke up the next day and there was more than 4,000 posts with people's hands. And people understood they weren't getting whitelist, but they wanted to be part of something. And so from the start, you know, there was this sentimental, social nature to the project. And to be honest, you know, and I've said this many, many times, like us minting out was amazing. Us going on that parabolic run was the worst thing that could have happened to the project, because a few things happened. A community that you spent 4 months building, you know, pre-launch, they were all gone, and for good reason. Well, 10% of them are still there today, but when you buy an NFT for $150 and you know you're living in Africa or Asia and you can sell it for $10,000 and pay family debt or renovate your house, of course you sell it. Like I was literally telling people, sell, leave. Like that's you have to do it. And then what came in is a bunch of crypto bros, just pure and simple. And so these guys came in, and with them came the demands for market making, for alpha, for hype, for things that were just not us. And I would always ask people that bought in, I'm like, did you not read the manifesto? And they're like, what the fuck is a manifesto?
They saw the floor price and then they thought
exactly. Like we saw the floor, it was pumping, we bought in. I'm like, well, that's kind of on you, right? Like you didn't know what you bought into. And that started, I can only describe it as a bit of a war. In that 6 months to a year and a half, where like I really had to disappoint many whales that bought in high, continued racking up, continued heaping pressure on us to do things that we were just not going to do. And eventually that is the biggest reason to like the eventual downfall of our floor price. It's because eventually you had people with 700-800 bears that continued to accumulate to put pressure on the team, kind of be like, you know, this guy just won't, he's not going to budge. So then there was the systematic dump. And then every time we had to pump, there was more dumping. And, you know, there was a lot of, you know, high school bad blood and drama. And honestly, so like, and to be honest, I think that contributed a lot to the disenfranchising of the people that were helping me lead the project. I don't blame them. Like when you're receiving death threats and hate and, you know, being called a rug every 3 minutes, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you're gonna be like, you like, fuck these people. But the difference for me was that I was attending events, and so the trolls don't come to the events. The people who come to the events are the normal people. And so I met a completely different portion of the community and I fell in love with them, right? I'm like, I want to be friends with these guys. They get it. And then you go back home and you log into Twitter and you're like, not these assholes again. Because like they're the ones with the bigger following, bigger bags, you know. And so, you know, CP, when I was telling you like, this is probably the best position for OK Bears, I'm saying it from a community perspective. I don't think there's anybody holding a bear today that is holding it for uninformed reasons. Okay. Yes, they're all hoping that we're going to be a universal symbol for good and everyone's going to be clamoring for those NFTs and we're going to pump, we're going to drop a token, everyone's going to be rich, we're going to drive Lambos, right? And that's the but the initial reason to hold is we're proud of the work that you do and we want to be part of it. And that I wouldn't trade that for anything that happened, you know, in post-mint.
This is just the worst sales pitch ever, honestly. I have to say, like, listening to you, it's such a noble cause and it's very inspiring. So hats off to you. It does appear to me to have been, you know, even though you say it's an experiment, there clearly is there is a goal in mind, and it's just how you get there, and that is absolutely beautiful. So I commend you for that 100%. I really do.
I keep telling the team, CP, I think the one thing that now stands in the way between us actually delivering on like this vision is time and money. And it's a unique situation because we've never like we're okay bears, so we were never in a similar situation. But then when you look at how much these courts cost and like the cost to document them and all the rest of it, you kind of think, okay, well, we can do 3-4 more courts, but at some point we need to generate revenue, which is something that like most NFT projects, just don't think about. And so like we're at the process at the moment. I remember early days we had a lot of holders that were like, you guys should go for a raise. You need to go for an equity raise. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, for what? Like, what are we gonna like? How am I gonna stand in front of invest? What am I gonna tell them? Hey, we're a trending NFT collection. And then they're like, what are you gonna do moving forward? I'm like, post some hype on Twitter and hope for the best. Like, there was no way I was gonna like. There was nothing, right? There was a lot of hype, but there was nothing. And today there's a whole vision. There's 3 years of trial and error. There's a community that's like thriving. So like now we're at the stage where, okay, maybe it's a little bit late, but now we're ready to bring on some investors. Now we're ready to make this someone else's problem to share with us. So we're exploring that at the moment, and we'll see where we go.
That would be interesting. I as much as you're willing to talk about it, how would that look like to have investors on for what is essentially a philanthropic project?
It's a good question. I mean, we toyed with whether we actually want to switch entirely to an NGO or not at some point, and then the team was like, no. Like, a good example is thinking of it as a social enterprise. So social enterprises like, do you know the shoe brand Tom's? So Tom's is a shoe brand that was like really trendy maybe 10-15 years ago. Basically their business model is you buy a shoe and we donate the shoe to somebody that needs it. Just plain and simple. And they went berserk. And so they generated a ton of revenue. They still do it today, even though they're no longer like at the top of the trending list, but they still have solid revenue. And that's where we're aiming to be. Like, as someone that comes from branding, I want to prove with OK Bears that doing good can make money, right? Not the other way around. So I think if you build a brand, and in this case, we have the NFTs as one product, we have the apparel as another product. I want to prove that by doing enough good, that is cool. Like, at the end of the day, we're like painting humongous murals on the floor in countries around the world. In a couple of years, some of them will be seen on Google Maps, right? And so I'm convinced if we do this enough, you're going to see us on Instagram and TikTok one day and you'll be like, you know what? I'm going to buy a t-shirt because I want to be part of this. You're going to see an OK Bear profile picture on X, and you're going to think, I want an OK Bear. I want to be part of this. And I'm much more interested in having 10,000 people want one OK Bear than 500 people want 10 OK Bears each. Right? And so I think there are many examples of such companies that have a philanthropic approach, but that rack up millions and millions of dollars on a yearly basis. And for us, I think you have to be a specific type of investor to want this. And internally, we have been debating as well whether we make this a public process. Because again, it's Web3, right? And instead of going to a VC firm and keeping things hush hush, just let the world know. And in a way, if we fail to attract Web3 investors, it's kind of the writing will be on the wall that Web3 does not want this. And I think that's fine, because at least we would get closure. And then the community would kind of understand, okay, we've knocked that entire door. And it's not about waiting for adoption. It's that the audience does not care about this. But if I look, I stumbled recently on a token on Pump Fund called Feed the People. And I think they launched a month ago. And basically they live stream, they go around LA and they feed people and they give people haircuts, and they're growing day to day. Their live numbers are at like 1,000 viewers, and so like you look at that and you see that there is good in Web3. So yeah, we'll see if we can harness it.
Yeah. Well, I think for those that you can say are still around, I suppose you've still got those chasing that profit. I suppose we're all included in that batch.
Yeah.
But I think for most people who are really in Web3 now, it's only got to be for the love of it, because there isn't a lot else at the moment, is there? So
we're talking, and I've got like widgets on my screen with, you know, Bitcoin and Sol and ETH and Pengu and everything. Like I could just see the charts going down as we're talking.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah, just for context,
and we're not running away.
This is we're recording this like a week or so after the big liquidation that we had on a Friday. So we are still kind of on that process. The market didn't really recover. It's went up, down. It's still, we don't know what we're gonna, in theory, we should be in the few weeks or months on the top of the market, or not top, but the market is not reflecting that. Gold, silver, stocks, everything is pumping except crypto. And someone promised us that this was the place where to make money, and apparently the boomers are the ones making money now, right?
Yeah, it's not looking good at the moment, but you know, it's ups and downs. We know this.
We keep building.
Yeah.
Wagbo.
Well, I have to say, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation, very inspirational. I love hearing what OKBez is up to and all about the mission. Bad Religion, anything you want to add before we let Kais go to his busy lifestyle?
Perfect. It was an amazing interview. I'm sure everyone's going to love it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for being our first guests in the revival of the Goodwood Show. And we wish you all the best, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed the chat, and I look forward to seeing you guys grow from here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Peace out.
That's
Thanks very much.
Thank you.